Mothers and stand-in mothers. The role of the parent in producing a child who fits into the society into which they're going to emerge is something that is given quite a lot of attention in this novel. The maternal role is prominent, both actively and also in the sense of being absent. Aurora is one of the many Victorian literary heroines who is making her way in the world without a mother to assist and to help her steer and navigate the relatively tricky route for a young woman to find stability in society and fulfilment and happiness. And many Victorian novels, especially written by women, are about how a woman can find fulfilment and happiness despite the restricted position that she holds in society, and also about the wisdom which is either present or absent of the maternal figure in assisting that passage. This novel makes it very clear that the wisdom of a mother, an older woman who loves a younger woman, is indispensable to safely steering the rising animal spirits, for want of a better phrase, of a young adult daughter carefully towards socially acceptable behaviour, so that her animal spirits can be safely channeled into marriage, and that there is no risk of falling outside of society as a result simply of becoming an adult human being. Aurora thinks at the time that she is engaged to Talbot that she is about to gain a mother. She's very excited at the prospect of gaining a mother through having a mother-in-law, something which she doesn't gain in her relationship with John, because of course John's parents have already both died. Talbot's mother, Mrs. Bulstrode, is more reserved in her attitude towards gaining a daughter-in-law, though. Another mother figure who is present in Aurora's life is Mrs. Alexander, Lucy's mother. Mrs. Alexander is a very efficient matron. She, by dint of having had many children whom she's steered and navigated safely through their lives, organising different events such as seeing her child off to Eton and that type of thing, she takes on almost a sort of executive maternal role, and she's available to other people who might need a mother figure in their lives. She steps in for Aurora to take care of Aurora at significant moments. For example, she takes Aurora shopping ahead of the ball to celebrate Aurora's 21st birthday, which is essentially, in Aurora's case, her coming out ball. So that's a role that a mother would normally have been there for. Mrs. Alexander, of course, really is another stereotype. She is the stereotypical perfect mother, as Lucy is the stereotypical perfect daughter. And the two are well matched in a product. One is the product of the other. Mothers-in-law or mothers of young men behave somewhat differently from how one might hope a real mother would behave, or how the surrogate, as in the case of Mrs. Alexander, mother behaves. They seem to be quite double aspected, wearing one position with regard to the daughter whom they're about to acquire to their sons, and another to the woman who's about to become part of their family. Mrs. Bulstrode, Talbot's mother, writes a very welcoming letter to Aurora that Aurora is much touched by and places much store in. But on the other hand, to her son, she expresses fearful prayers, asks questions about the appropriateness of the prospective daughter-in-law, what her moral standards are, what are the opinions and religious principles of the young lady. None of these qualms are expressed to the daughter-in-law. The mother-in-law is invested in the continuance of the hereditary line. She has married into the family, she has assisted in running the estate, she has produced the male heir. Now she as well assesses potential young women, prospective members of the family, in a way that is similar to the male assessment of the standards of behaviour of a young woman. And this is interesting. Lucy conforms absolutely to the ideal gender stereotype of a daughter-in-law. She's done it for being a daughter, a prospective wife, young bride, and now as a daughter-in-law she comes in and puts herself again into the subjugated position of the woman. Although she is in her relationship with her mother-in-law dealing directly with a woman, she nonetheless takes up the modest, retiring, unassuming position of the period female to the male. And in this way again there's this whole way in which the mother-in-law has taken on the sort of patriarchal system, and the values of the patriarchal system comes forward again. Lady Bulstrode, it's Lady Bulstrode, I'd forgotten that. Lady Bulstrode patronised her daughter-in-law with lofty kindness, took her under her sheltering wing. And Lucy is approved of due to being a blushing, timorous creature, so gentle and humble, flattering the maternal bride. Lucy will do everything that she's told in order to preserve the status and the way of life of the Bulstrodes, and that's what's required. She's been educated to be the perfect wife, and she is now manifesting those qualities that were inculcated. She is a product of her education, both her literal education and her upbringing by her mother, who correctly gauged the requirements of the period. They're all stereotypes. In many respects, Lucy, Mrs. Alexander, Lady Bulstrode, are none of them pertinent to the suspense of the novel. They're all outside the suspense of the novel, but they help to illustrate the gender issues that are involved in the sensation plot of the novel. Governesses and surrogate mothers. Governesses in the novel take on the role of a replacement mother. They're tending not to do it very well. The first governess that Aurora has encourages her in inappropriate ideas about a member of staff, encourages her in inappropriate conduct, such as spending long hours away from the home in the company of a male, only. And the consequences of these sort of reckless fancies that Aurora is encouraged to engage in is devastating. In defence of the governess, she had probably herself been very frivolously educated without any thought to a need to make, a woman needing to make serious decisions or being fully responsible for what she did. And after all, traditionally, the husband made the decisions and the wife carried them out. If a young woman wasn't fortunate enough to get married and becomes a governess, she's not going to suddenly be able to override her education and become responsible and parent-like when she's had no child of her own to take care of. So the first governess is summarily dismissed as a result of inappropriate execution of her role. The second governess is acquired very, very much later, after Aurora is fully grown and doesn't really need anyone to come and help her with her actual schooling or learning anymore. Mrs. Powell is essentially in the role of chaperone. Aurora hasn't got a mother with whom to go to different balls and social functions and to be chaperoned. And therefore a governess is needed, because Archibald Floyd doesn't really want to go out to lots of parties, or doesn't feel comfortable with going to parties with his young unmarried daughter, or feels that he's too old to go. Perhaps a combination of all of these things. Mrs. Powell, however, effectively, as the novel progresses, takes on the role of the evil stepmother. So we return again, in some ways, to the Cinderella story that the novel opens with, except that it's the start of the Cinderella story, that the Cinderella, whose mother has died, being taken care of by the evil stepmother, who is jealous of her and her beauty. Mrs. Powell is very jealous of Aurora and her beauty and her prospects as a young woman, despite having herself been very generously treated, which was relatively unusual for a governess of the period, as a social equal with her employers, and socialising with them, so that, playing it differently, she might have changed her own life for the better. But again, it's a piece of fiction, and she is there to illustrate another type of mother, and it's the evil stepmother mother. Again, she's a stereotype. For the father's capacity to fulfil the maternal role. This occurs in other novels. It occurs, Jane Austen, you can think about Persuasion. It occurs to some extent in North and South, where although Margaret Hale's mother is alive, her mother abdicates the role of mother in many respects, and Margaret is so much closer to her father. It's certainly present as well in Can You Forgive Her, where Alice Vavasor has only her father to turn to, and he is really not present for Alice as a parent, as a father, let alone someone who is making up the shortfall in Alice's life of not having a mother. If you think as well about Middlemarch, Dorothy, despite being the eldest and seemingly the most sensible, without a mother makes quite serious mistakes. She steps into a too masculine position within her mind, and commits the grave error of marrying Casaubon. Again, her uncle, her guardian, is totally inadequate in the role of advising her, totally incapable of advising a young woman about the decisions that she should make about her life. Celia, who's more connected with herself as a woman, makes better decisions. Aurora is left without a mother very early on. She's still an infant. And her father's interpretation of the education for a girl is a little bit too indulgent. And he doesn't succeed in creating the delicate balance that's needed to bring a girl up and to fulfil the quite stringent requirements of women at the social level, young women at the social level for the period in their social class. Aurora very swiftly becomes a fast girl, so at fast, in inverted commas, quotation from the novel, and becoming, as we've discussed before, involved with horses and dogs. And she's described as fast by the age of 6 and 10, which even for the internet age is quite speedy. The fast is not wholly based in the fast for today's world, but because of the associations I talked about with young women and animals, particularly horses, it's not good that Aurora's so engrossed with betting, and it's not good anyway that a young girl would be engrossed with betting or the breeding of dogs and horses at such a very, very young age. I think it just doesn't seem appropriate, really. Her father, Aurora's father, Archibald, perceives shortcomings in his daughter's conduct, but he doesn't to any degree perceive his own role in the product of the education or the upbringing that he is providing Aurora with. He doesn't see that he is responsible for this product at all. Without a mother being there, he doesn't think that he should take up that role at any level. And it's somehow up to Aurora, being feminine, to intuitively understand what's expected of her, but she doesn't. So again, the novel throws a big question mark at the idea that gender and gender behaviours are simply naturally there, that they are automatic, somehow laid down by divine order. The novel disputes that again here. Interestingly as well, Archibald exhibits this fatal blind spot where he thinks that it would be nice for his daughter to have an attractive, good-looking groom to go out and about with when she's riding on her pony. And just really no mother would have made that error, and it really is a very severe error. And there is an indictment, I think, a little bit on the detachment and the lack of taking full responsibility that Archibald Floyd exhibits towards his daughter. It is recognised even by Talbot Bulstrode late on in the story that Aurora has always been disadvantaged. There always has been an element of struggle for Aurora in understanding who she is and who she needs to be in her society because of having not had a mother.